landscape of Spider-Man adversaries, perhaps no villain has reached the apex of ferociousness more than the anti-hero Venom. And this piece that I'm sitting next to does a great job, in my opinion, of capturing that character's intensity. Hello, I'm Gina, and this is my review of the XM Studios Venom Bust. Now, this piece was released in the first quarter of 2017, but even before it was shipped to collectors, it's been cultivating a bit of buzz. So in this video, I'm going to explain the 3 unique features on this piece that's been attracting collectors. I'm also going to give my own personal feelings on the XM Studios Venom Bust, and hopefully this video will help you formulate your own opinions on this piece. So I'm going to do all of this starting with some background information. And I'm going to provide you with some high-definition photographs of his portrait, his body, the appendages and base, and then as always I'm going to conclude with my final thoughts. So with my Venom t-shirt on and the cameras rolling, let's get started. Made of cold cast porcelain, the XM Studio Venom Bust is listed as quarter scale. And as I had just previously mentioned, it's attracting the attention and interest of collectors for 3 key reasons. The first being the most obvious. This is a bust. Now, that's notable when you consider that in the statue community, full body statues usually take center stage. But somehow, the distinctive sculpt of this bust has allowed this piece to crawl its way into the conversation. Okay, so the second reason why the XM Studio Venom Bust has been generating a bit of buzz is that it has an edition size of 250. Now, generally speaking, most collectors are content to have a statue with an edition size of under 1,000. So I think most would agree that 250 is remarkably low for a licensed collectible. Okay, so the third unique feature of this piece that I can't forget to mention is that it's hand sculpted. Now, this industry, of course, is moving more and more towards digital sculpting. But the XM Studio Venom Bust was sculpted the traditional way, by hand, by the talented Kucharek Brothers. Now, they certainly didn't sculpt the bust like how we see here, but you get the general idea. This piece was handcrafted the old-fashioned way. Now, the Kucharek Brothers have an impressive portfolio. They've sculpted for dynamic forces, but they're perhaps even more well known for their highly regarded retro cable statue for Bowen Designs. Now, for their XM Studio Venom Bust, the brothers have delivered a very raw, almost primeval sculpt that is perfectly suited for the anti-hero Venom. It is the sculpt that is my favorite feature of this piece. It depicts Venom hunched and leaning forward, and his portrait with Venom's classic long tongue is front and center. Now here we have Venom's appendages rising from the base and encircling him. This sculpt is unrestrained and it has an almost savage appearance. And as I cited earlier, I think it connects to the character of Venom perfectly. But to understand why, I think we have to take a closer look at the character's origins. Venom is an alien symbiote organism that feeds on humans, and this symbiote has bonded with numerous hosts, including Peter Parker. Now hold on, wait, hold on. I cannot show footage of Spider-Man 3, it's too unforgivable. So let me start over again with some more appropriate stock footage. So, as I was saying, the alien symbiote has bonded with several hosts in the past, including Peter Parker. But when the symbiote was discarded by Peter Parker, it found its next human host in Eddie Brock, a disgraced journalist. Eddie Brock blamed the downfall of his career on Peter Parker, and the symbiote fed off this hatred. It wasn't until Amazing Spider-Man issue number 300 that this union between the symbiote and Eddie Brock would make its full reveal as the supervillain Venom. In the comics that followed, Venom would have a toward relationship with itself, with Eddie Brock wanting to rehabilitate himself, but the symbiote edging him on, encouraging his darker side. Understanding that connection and that inner struggle between Eddie Brock and the alien symbiote is fundamental in understanding the design of this piece. And that's because, in my opinion, I think this bust is trying to capture a moment in time when the alien symbiont has won that struggle, when the alien symbiont has taken over and is now in full control. And that explains the sort of brutality to the sculpt. Now, I want to sort of explore these themes further, beginning with the portrait. Now, moving to the portrait of the XM Studio Venom Bust. Here you can see it's sculpted with Venom's quintessential protruding jawline. And it has Venom's very lewd, long, swirling tongue, which displays the predatory nature of the character. Now, the eyes are sculpted with a very jagged outline, which personally I prefer. And it has rows and rows of angular, sharp teeth. Now, let's take a look at each of these components in closer detail. A careful observation of the eyes, you can see that the inner white segments have a raised, rough surface. It's a very understated but well-executed texture effect. Now, focusing on the tongue, it's sculpted with mini indentations and grooves, reminiscent of an actual tongue, and it's painted to give a damp, clammy appearance. Now, shifting to Venom's teeth, you can see that he has front and back rows of sharp incisors, all pointing at different angles, and almost identical to a reptile's. Now, I love how they're painted with an ivory color. Now, that's important because Venom's symbiont suit is usually just made up of two colors, black and white. So these ivory painted teeth give the impression of bone, and they give this piece a much needed third color. I think it goes without saying that with any bust, it's the portrait that's in the spotlight or in the forefront. And with this particular piece, I think that the portrait does a great job of channeling the intensity of the character. Now, can the same be said about the body of the bust? Well, let's discuss that next. So the midsection of this bust shows Venom's body contorted. He's hunched over, his neck is turned, and he's glaring straight at you, almost like a beast. And the shape of the body, in my opinion, does a great job of carrying over the viciousness that we see in the portrait. Now, my favorite two components of the midsection has to be Venom's insignias on his chest and back, and the lower portion of the body. Looking closely at Venom's insignias, which are on his chest and back, you can see that they are raised and very coarsely sculpted. And there's nothing subtle about this texturing. You can notice it almost 10 feet away. It gives the insignias a very organic web-like presence. And they're also painted a very stark white color, which is a nice contrast against the matte black color of Venom's symbiont suit. Now, focusing on the shoulders, here we have Venom's veins, which is such a predominant part of the character. And on this bust, the veins are sculpted with quite a bit of detail. Now, moving down to the foundation of the body, which connects the body to the base, you'll notice it has a very liquefied effect, and it shows Venom in his oozy liquid state. This is probably one of my favorite aspects of the XM Studio Venom Bust. These meticulously sculpted strands emerging from the base to form the body. Now, speaking of base, let's talk about that next. So the final segment of the XM Studio Venom Bust that I want to draw your attention to are Venom's appendages and the base. Now, on this piece, Venom's appendages, or his tentacles, are depicted rising from the base and emerging from his body. And in my opinion, I think they represent one of the more dramatic qualities of this bust. Now, the larger oversized appendages are attached to the base via a long metal rod, while the smaller appendages have a magnetic connection. I love how each appendage is sculpted to embody movement. They encircle Venom, giving the bust fluidity and vibrancy. And as a result, the XM Studio Venom Bust has a very curved shape, rather than the linear, straight profile that we're accustomed to with full body statues. Now, focusing on the base, you can see that it's designed to resemble a concrete disc, with Venom's liquid excretions pouring off the base to form puddles. Of course, as many of you know, Venom is usually shown in the comics in his semi-liquid state. So with this piece, I think it's a nice touch that we can see Venom's excretions dripping off the base at almost every angle. So one final point I want to make about the concrete base is that if you look closely, you'll notice it has these very minuscule cracks. And you can almost picture Venom's excretions dripping in and filling these cracks. I think this concrete base fits nicely with the dark imagery of this piece. Okay, so in this video so far, I provided some background information. I covered the portrait, the body, the base, and the appendages. So in the next section, I'm going to sum everything up with my final thoughts. So at the start of this video, I had listed the 3 unique features about this piece. Number 1, it's a bust. Number 2, it has a really low edition size of 250. And number 3, of course, it's hand sculpted. Now, as interesting as all these features are, what really drew me into the XM Studio Venom Bust is what I've been alluding to throughout this entire video. It's the savage raw art design and sculpt. It's almost as if XM Studios and the Kucharek Brothers have stripped away the bodybuilder interpretation of Venom and left us with the monster that is the alien symbiont. Now, of course, these are just my own personal feelings about this piece, and I urge you, I push you to go watch other collectors' videos on this guy and hear what they have to say. So on that note, I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, so take care.